This dude romanticizes about what's going on in China. He lied about being there. He lied about being in Hong Kong during the Tiananmen Square protests, which he was not. And then he get calls out on all the time. He's lying about everything. This dude is just he's smarmy, dude.
I saw the interview where they were like, so you said you think socialism is a good thing. This is kind of what you were referencing, Phil, but I think they said socialism, not communism. They were like,
they did.
And they were like, the definition of socialism is that the private property, there is no private property. All property is owned by the state. So you support that in something like
Socialism doesn't say the state, although it is true, just to clarify. They say it's publicly owned.
And then
which basically means the state.
He was like, no, I mean, I just mean it's like being neighborly was the quote. There's a really crazy interview where that interaction happens.
He's lying. Look at the policies he's passed in his state. The dude is DEI. So DEI is the attempt in the United States to create an American Communist Party. That's why they want, there's chief diversity officers. That is installing the CCP into your business. That's what DEI is. And I don't think this necessarily comes from China. I think it's Democrats largely who have romanticized and dream of having a government like the CCP does. Where who was it first you have Trudeau, who said he was a big fan of Xi Jinping or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
You had these Democrats a long time ago say that they envy how China can build a highway overnight and the United States can't do it. Well, it's because we have human rights here. You can't go to someone's house and just smash it to bits and then build your highway over it. But in China, they can. They don't care.
Yeah, they can also force slaves to go build the highway. I mean,
they'll just be like, your house is gone and it's going to be a highway.
I imagine. I said that out of hand. I think of these, some Theo Fletcher sometimes really comes down on me on Twitter. Shout out to Theo Fletcher, who sometimes I can't take it, but I've said some things about China that aren't correct, and sometimes I feel bad about that. And I don't know about them making slaves build highways, but I think that they don't. I think that they don't have workers' rights the same way that we do. I mean, I guess off the top of my head, I should really research that before I start making those statements. I've just heard stuff about the way that the Uyghurs have been treated in like camps, and that they're being.
I mean, whether it be the Uyghurs, the Tibetans, or any number of ethnic minorities, China's really been absolutely harsh on.
The Falun Gong was another group that apparently were persecuted by the government pretty ruthlessly, I've heard.
Yeah, I mean,
and then they formed the Epic Times, I believe, right? And they moved to the United States.
Oh, that's who did it. Okay.
Yeah, if you go to New York, Falun Gong people are handing out flyers and stuff. And then it was really funny because China started hiring YouTubers. They offered, I'm pretty sure I got offered this at some point. I got an email where they were like, we'll give you $200 to post this video to your YouTube channel. And then I looked at the video and it was a guy being like, these really weird people, Falun Gong, like, what's this about? And then it was like a mini doc that was like 5 to 10 minutes long from some white dude complaining about this group. And I'm like, I ain't posting that to my channel. What is this? But a lot of people were like, $200, I'll take it. It's just a commercial, right? And I'm like, no way, dude.
I read the Romance of the Three Kingdoms. Have you guys ever read this book? It's worth the read. It's like the Chinese Hamlet. It's considered an absolute classic, written by Lo Gongxiao in like the 1400s or 1500s or
like Wushu and Wei.
Yeah.
The Three Kingdoms?
Yeah. And they've been Dynasty Warriors games came out of this Romance of the Three Kingdoms. The novel's incredible. I highly recommend reading it. And you learn all about the beauty of the culture and the way, but it really is imperial propaganda. It's like talking about how wonderful the emperor is and how we need to restore the emperor. I want to become the emperor. Who's in control of the country? And it's like centralized control and authority. And it's like kind of gross that I worshiped Liu Bei and thought he was such a phenomenal human. All he wanted to do was restore the power of the empire. And granted, it was 2,000 years ago. What other things did they have going for him other than like a good emperor? They didn't really have the technology to establish a democratic republic in a lot of ways like we have now. And it's always made me love China. Reading this and thinking about going to Chengdu in the West and seeing the mountains and the temples and the history and stuff. But man, communism as an economy is just so stifling. And like the brutality that I've seen and heard about in that country is...
But it goes beyond just an economy. Like it's totalitarian. So it's not just the economic system. It's the way you live your life. And being totalitarianism, it's the thoughts that you have. Totalitarianism doesn't allow for dissent. You can live in, there are authoritarian countries where they don't care so much what you think, just so long as you shut up and do what you're told. Like, that's authoritarian. If it's totalitarian, they're going to be involved with who you can marry. Like the reason China had a one-child policy, because it's totalitarian, because they were dictating how many children you were allowed to have. They dictate whether or not you can have health care. They dictate literally what you think, which is part of the reason why they control speech, because if you can control what people are allowed to say, then you can do, to some extent, control what people think and what people are allowed to think. That was the whole, in 1984, the reason they wanted to go ahead and go with Newspeak is because they wanted to get rid of the ability to think bad thoughts.
You need to invent ideas or discover them, however you want to describe it. But the idea that there was self-governance or that there could be self-governance didn't exist until the founding fathers, largely. I mean, certainly there was, to a degree, democracy, but mostly around the world, kingdoms. It was divine mandate or someone who just inherited control. And the founding fathers, I don't believe it was the first instance of self-governing, but a lot of the ideas that came from this era were developed. And so, I mean, if you look at the rise of communism, especially, right? Communism didn't exist all that long ago. It's it starts to rise in the late 1800s, early 1900s. Ideas have to be discovered. And so if you can stop people from talking about a certain type of idea, they can't even begin to imagine such a thing exists.
I've heard in North Korea that they don't have a word for love. Is that correct?
That's probably not true.
That was a quote, or I believe it was Yeonmi Park, who dissented and fled the country and said that they don't have a word for it.
They have to have a word for love because you have to love your leader. You have to love Kim Jong-un.
Yeah.
I
I read they have a poo tax. You have to actually pay the government in poop. And I'm not even making that up. I'm not even trying to be funny. I read that
Pay them in poop or for poop?
Like you have to give them a certain amount of poop for fertilizer.
Thanks for checking out this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to watch the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Subscribe to this channel, and we will see you all there.